In this video, we will show you how to replace your power steering pressure line on this Ford F-150. This will be accessed from under the front of your vehicle. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we're going to do is make our way under the hood to our power steering reservoir. Along the top, you're going to have your power steering cap. Go ahead and turn that counterclockwise. We'll give it a quick inspection and we can rest it on top. Now at this point, when you're doing your hose, it's a good idea to replace as much fluid as possible, especially if the fluid that's in the system has been in there for a while. So with that said, let's make our way safely under the front of the vehicle so we can start draining some fluid. Now we're under the front of the vehicle. We can see our power steering cooler. We're going to start draining the power steering system by loosening this 6mm headed clamp. On this one, you can also use a flat blade screwdriver. Just a quick inspection of that clamp. If it looks like it's rotted and weak, replace it. Now we're going to follow that line to its mounting point along the front of your frame. We want to separate this. I'm just using an angled pick. You can use pretty much anything as a small prying device. Just make your way in between the groove. Now once you have some movement from that, we can continue on removing this line from that cooler. We can use a hose pick if necessary to break this free. Just be careful not to cause any damage. Now fluid will come out of this area. We have our collection receptacle handy. We'll angle this down to drain our fluid. Let's start securing that return hose to our power steering cooler. Bring this in, press it on as far as possible, continue on with your clamp. As for this clamp, we want to make sure it's snug to the point you cannot turn the hose, but not tighten to the point that it actually strips out the clamp, otherwise you have to replace it. Okay, right there is bottomed out. Not too much pressure here. Make sure there's no movement. Now after confirming that that's tight, let's make our way over here to our mounting point. We're going to latch this in. Now we're back underneath the front of the vehicle. In this area, you can find that you have a plastic oil diverter that goes across the top of the frame. We're going to dislodge that by removing two 10mm headed mounting bolts. Now that we have that plastic tray out of the way, we have a clear view inside this area. I'm looking along the bottom of my power steering pump. I can see my power steering pump pulley with the serpentine belt. Just behind that, I can see my pressure line leading into the pump. And if you keep looking just a little bit further rearward, you're going to find that you have an electrical wiring harness held in place. We're starting with that electrical wiring harness. I just want to dislodge it so I can have plenty of room in this area. I'll just be using a long pry bar, gently pry. Now ours did break, but typically these just pop right out of place. Now I'll just go ahead and get that wiring harness out of my way. Now we're going to be using an open-end crow's foot to continue on with our fitting. Let's make sure we have a collection receptacle underneath this area so we can collect any fluid as necessary. Now once you get this in place, you want to turn it counterclockwise. Just be careful not to get your tool stuck behind the power steering pump pulley. Now we're paying attention where the power steering pressure line connects into the pump. You should be able to wiggle this and pull it down and out of position. We'll make our way underneath the frame and the power steering rack. Now along the driver's side area here, we can see our power steering pressure switch. It has an electrical connector. We should be able to get a little bit of wiggle room here. It has a locking tab. We're going to try to press this in and disconnect it. If it doesn't work that way, you can also use a small pocket screwdriver or a pick. We're going to carefully make our way underneath the locking tab. and gently pry it up. After you have that disconnected, a quick inspection for corrosion. Now, as far as that sensor, we can remove that once we have the line removed from the vehicle. Now we're going to move along the front of the engine here. You can see where the power steering pressure line makes its way right along the driver's side of your crank pulley. It has a 15mm mounting nut holding the bracket in place. Let's remove that mounting nut. Let's just try to get our socket on. It can be a tight angle. Now let's take hold of that line. We should be able to give it a wiggle and pull it out and away from the stud. You can pivot the bracket if necessary. There we are. Now if you were looking just behind your power steering cooler, you're going to find where the power steering pressure line makes its way around a curve leading back over towards the driver's side. There's an 8mm headed bolt holding this bracket in place. Let's remove that bolt so we can dislodge the bracket. There's our bolt. That looks good still. Just take hold of that line. We should be able to move it around. Now we're going to follow this line towards the power steering rack next. Now as we follow our power steering pressure line over towards our power steering rack, we can see our connection point. We're going to be loosening our 10mm headed mounting bolt. Go ahead and fully remove that so we can remove our power steering pressure line from the power steering rack. Of course, you do want to make sure nothing falls inside of the power steering system. This can cause issues. Keep in mind throughout this process, fluid can come out of any one of the connection points. There's that mounting bolt. Just a quick inspection of that. We'll set it aside. Once you have the bolts out of the way, the next thing we want to do is try to move this bracket. You should find that it breaks free from the power steering rack, but it does stay attached to our line. Once we do have movement from there, we can take hold of our line, we'll give it a wiggle, and pull it straight out and away. Fluid may come out of this area. There we go. Now we can start pulling this away, only so far here. Let's pause in this area and we'll continue on removing the rest of the power steering pressure line. Now we're going to start pulling out the power steering pressure line through this area. We want to be very careful for the cooling fins on our power steering cooler. So for this, just pay attention for your brackets. Those are the most common areas to cause issues. We'll just gently start flexing this and bringing it out of position. If it feels as though your line gets caught, it might be one of your mounting brackets. Just pay attention for that. Let's get this over to the bench so we can start removing our power steering pressure switch. On the bench, I'm going to be using a 14mm. We'll be turning this counterclockwise. First, break it free. Once you have it broken free, typically you can just unscrew that by hand. We want to give this a thorough inspection, confirm you do not see any fluid inside of this port. If there is, more than likely the sensor is no good. At the very end of this, we're going to remove our sealing O-ring. You can use an angled pick. We'll pull that off there. Now on the very end of this, we can see our sealing O-ring. We're going to remove that. We'll be replacing that. Thorough inspection, we'll set this aside. There it is, friend. Okay, friend, let's prepare to install our brand new power steering pressure line. We're going to start with the power steering pressure switch. On the far end, where the threaded portion is, clean and thoroughly inspect. In your kit, you're going to find it came with a brand new sealing ring. For this, we're just going to slide it on there as far as possible. The next thing we'll do is apply some clean power steering fluid. I have a gloved finger. Start it in and bottom it out by hand. Now we'll continue snugging it with our 14mm wrench. Right there is bottomed out. We're just going to take it a tiny bit further. We don't want to strip anything out, but you also want to make sure that this will not leak or fall out. A quick note about this area, if you did not have a power steering pressure switch on your application, this is the plug that you would be replacing the switch with, and you do want to use that O-ring gasket. You would put that right in this place. Make sure it's snug. Now we're going to have a look at the ends of the power steering pressure line. You'll find that one of your ends already has a sealing gasket on it. The other one requires the next O-ring gasket. Just press that right into the groove. Clean power steering fluid as a lubricant. Now we can get this over to the vehicle. Now back over at the vehicle, prior to installing the brand new line, we want to make sure we clean each one of our 2 mounting ports. We'll start up at the power steering pump. I'm just using a clean rag, never any type of detergents. I don't want anything getting inside of the power steering system. Just give that a quick wipe. That area looks good. Now we need to pay attention to the power steering rack mounting port. Down here, same thing, just a clean rag, no solvents. Now we can get the pressure line in place. We're going to start with bringing the ends of the pressure line up towards the driver's side of the vehicle. Obviously, you want to be extremely careful not to get any foreign debris inside of this line. That can damage your power steering system. We'll continue on bringing the pressure sensor into position as well. We want to make sure we're very gentle when we start flexing things here. There we are. We'll just bring the line over. Once you feel as though you have the line in the proper placement, we'll continue on starting it in by hand. It can be fairly difficult to reach into this area. If you have a hard time doing that, you can use your 18mm. You just want to make sure you do not cross thread it into the wrong positioning. When attempting to start this line, you may find you want to apply gentle upward pressure while you continue turning the fitting clockwise. Let's get this bracket onto the stud there. Okay. Now this can be a little bit of a stretch. You just want to be extremely careful not to cause any damage. Once you do have the bracket in place, continue on with your 15mm nut. Make sure it's snug. I'm just going to attempt to get my socket on here. We may have to use a ratchet. Now we're back up where the line connects to our power steering pump. Let's snug it up here. Right there's bottomed out. Let's just try to take it a little bit further, confirming that that is properly secured in place. Now once we have that snug, we're going to torque this to 48 foot-pounds. There we are. Let's just make sure that we clean the mess in this area so we can confirm we do not have a power steering fluid leak in this area in the end. For this, I don't try to use any type of detergents which can cause damage to our belt. Now we'll move along to the portion where the line connects into the power steering rack next. Now once we start aligning this, we also want to make sure that we have our bracket in place. I typically like to do this before I fully install the line into the power steering rack. Now that we have that swung down into the proper position where it's sitting over the next line, let's continue pressing this in as far as possible. After it's bottomed out, align the bracket and start in your mounting bolt. And the torque for that will be 17 foot-pounds. For the mounting bolt, you want to make sure you clean the mounting threads and apply some blue thread locker. Do not use red thread locker for this application. Now the next thing we're doing is making our way to the mounting bracket that's over towards the passenger side next. We need to get our alignment tab aligned with the port in the frame first. After that, we have our mounting bolt port. At this point, we can flex the bracket as necessary. Okay. So I've got the bolt going in. Now let's just go ahead and check on that tab. We want to make sure we have that aligned as well. Press that right in. Okay, right there is bottomed out. Just going to take it a tiny bit further here and just double check to make sure it's properly secured in place. With that tight, let's continue on with our electrical connector. Go ahead and line up the locking tabs. We'll press this in, listen for a click, a light tug confirming it's secure. Now after reconnecting that switch, it's time for the oil diverter plate. Let's go ahead and get this in place, bringing it up towards the frame. We have our two 10mm mounting bolts. Go ahead and clean your mess in this area. Now one last quick inspection in this area and we can make our way back up into the engine compartment. Now back at the reservoir, it's time to fill our power steering fluid. We want to make sure we have it up to par right up along this area. To do this, we're going to use the manufacturer's specified fluid directly in this port. As we start bringing it in, you're going to find that air bubbles are going to start making their way up and out of the system. As that happens, fluid will continuously go down. We'll have to keep topping this off along the way. For now, let's do an initial top off. Now once you have your fluid up to the top level here, the next thing I always like to do is safely raise and support the front wheels off the ground. Continuing on, you can put the key in the on position without starting the vehicle and turn the steering wheel all the way from one side to the other. Repeat that process several times and the power steering rack is going to end up forcing all the air out of the system for you. Now after repeating that process until I saw no more air making its way out of the system here, I'm going to top off the fluid right up to my maximum line. Get our manufacturer's specified fluid. Reinstall your power steering reservoir cap. Okay friend, we finished our installation. The next thing we need to do is make sure that we've cleaned all of our mess. After that, start the vehicle, let it run for a short while, and make sure you don't hear any odd noises. If you hear an odd humming or a whining noise, more than likely you still have air in the system and you need to continue the bleed. Aside from that, just double check to make sure you have no leaks, close the hood, take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.